Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today's Monday, August 11th, 2025, and Peanuts Revenge. His owners, Peanuts passed on now, but his owners and the owners, they were also the owners of a raccoon named Fred, are suing the New York government for killing their pets. And so that's interesting. We'll see how that all plays out. I'm not sure. Trump's going to federalize DC today, and I realize these are both two American stories, but I think Canada's government is already acting tyrannically again, using fires as the excuse for for climate lockdowns and climate tyranny, really. And we watched all of that happen. We watched the apparatus of the state be used against people, and now there's comeuppance in the United States. We're not seeing that yet in Canada, but man, my fingers are crossed. And Trump federalizing DC, I think that's a big deal. Maybe we're going to see some kind of movement on all of the promises that Trump has made. And indeed, he does seem to be moving forward with something. There appears to be movement in Pam Bondi's area. It appears to be movement with Kash Patel. I don't know that it's going to be everything, but we'll see. Could be fun to watch. Anyway, either way. Climate lockdowns continue to potentially expand into Ontario. Since when do we have a fire risk map in Ontario? Is this new? Just like the COVID, when they were counting the COVID cases and all of the rest of that, seems very, very similar. And we're being told, we've got these new named fires and we've got to, take away your rights for your safety, comrade. And that's very, very concerning to me. And somebody, not me, but another person came up with this. And I think it's so smart. And I can't believe that we're not asking our government in a very formal way, why aren't you geoengineering rain? Because we can definitely do that. There are companies that operate openly in California. Rainmaker's one of them, operating on Twitter. And somebody's like, hey, Rainmaker, can you come make rain in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Ontario? How much would that cost? Get over here. Let's go. And so it is an open secret. Alberta uses geoengineering to stop hailstorms from damaging property already. So why aren't we using this in part of our arsenal to make sure that mitigating climate change is part and parcel of our response, right? Oh, because people won't believe it unless there's wildfires threatening their homes? Give me a break. Absolutely give me a break. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, speaking of fires, we're going to start with the fire, but I had a full-blown arachnid attack in my studio today. Actually, it was just one spider, and the damn thing is giant. Okay, if you're not watching, it's as big as my hand. If you are watching, look at the size of that. It's not as big as it's about as big as my palm, which is enough. It was enough. It came over and I could see its tentacle eye things, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're looking at me, buddy. I called him Henry, and I said, go away, Henry. Please go away. He's huge. He's absolutely huge. So he went onto the end of my desk where my microphones and things are connected. And I was like, just go away. So here was my arsenal. I took out my trusty air spraying thing for cleaning my keyboard, right? And I was like, Henry, get out of here. And I sprayed it at him and he held on. I was like, oh shit, I've just angered him now. So he's around. I blew him into a corner and I said, just stay there. And then I turned off the lights. So if I get up and run away, it's because I felt something weird on my leg. I'll be back. I promise. But yeah, full-blown spider infestation of one named Henry, and it's huge. So apologies about all that. Here's a meme. I love memes. We're going to talk about the fire and the ongoing tyranny in Canada because it is ongoing. And Payman is highlighting this one. And it's 4 cavemen. And it says the first liberals. And they're sitting around a fire. And one of the guys says, we really need to ban fires before someone gets hurt. Ha, right? Because, we supposedly mastered fire. We've also supposedly mastered rain, but we can't use that to help us with this fire situation we've got going here. Weird. That's such a weird thing. Victoria says, thoughts on this? If you allow the government to break the law for an emergency, enter COVID, then they will create emergencies to break the law. Enter arson and wildfires and geoengineered wildfires and all sorts of very concerning things happening in Canada with the end goal of saying, listen, you are not allowed to go into the woods that you live in for your safety, comrade. And that's concerning because they're not joking. They're not joking. You say, but my house is there. And they say, here's a lovely 400 square foot condo with a queen size bed that you and your children and your husband and your family can live in. By family, I mean your parents and maybe your sisters and their children too, right? Like it is absolutely not out of the realm of possible that they would do this and they would think that they're helping. Like, yes, we take people from their fire impacted communities and we give them condominiums that they can live in with their families. We're helping. But really, the play is we're moving people from rural properties using fire as the excuse and moving them into 15-minute cities. And it's happening in real time and nobody sees it. So Jeff Evely saw it, and Maxime Bernier, politicians are highlighting this now. And so Maxime Bernier is the only one that I've seen federally talking about Jeff Evely's plight. And he walked into the woods and he got a $25,000 fine. And everybody in Canada knows who Jeff is because he did this. And so Maxime Bernier is weighing in. He says PPC candidate, because Jeff Evely was a PPC candidate in the last election, is challenging Tim Houston's tyrannical climate lockdowns in Nova Scotia. Bravo, Jeff. And so our elected officials aren't. They're all silent. Every single elected official, seat in the House of Commons, I haven't seen anybody say anything except Leslyn Lewis. Leslyn Lewis is mentioning this. She says people are kind of concerned, right? But by and large, is she representing the Conservative Party here? Where's Pierre's mention of all of this? Where's Leslyn Lewis talking about Jeff Evely, right? She's not talking about him. She's talking about the situation more broadly. And I think that that's kind of concerning too. Dr. Leslyn Lewis says, I'm hearing from Canadians across the country who feel fearful and alienated by the recent hiking, fishing, and camping bans, along with the fines and tip lines we're seeing in provinces like Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, especially rural folks who forage and interact with the land daily. While the government says this is to prevent forest fires, the approach has left many feeling discouraged, disconnected, and wondering if there's a bigger purpose at play. Some have referenced my past work on the UN Convention on Biodiversity and are asking if the broader goal is to conserve and stop human use on 30% of Canada's land by 2030 is influencing policies like this. What I can say is this. Well, then she knows more than what she's saying. Protecting nature is vital, but we need respectful, transparent solutions that build trust, not alienate communities. More soon. So maybe they're going to address something about this, but so far, silence is echoing, right? I can't hear you over the nothing you're saying. Michael says, apparently we have a constitutional right to bike lanes, but not to walk in the woods, right? And that's very interesting. Recently, Doug Ford wanted to use the province's power to remove bike lanes in Toronto, and a judge said, you cannot do that, sir. That is a bridge too far. But everybody's saying, stay out of the woods for your safety, comrade, and everybody else is quiet as a mouse, right? And that's very, very concerning if you ask me, because that's not the way I think people want to be governed. People don't want tyranny. People just don't want tyranny. Full stop. Michael again says, they'll make access to nature and the wildlands a highly regulated privilege. They'll remove parking, require purchased permits, confine you to marked trails, ban overnights, and impose nonsense rules because they can, and not just in the parks. Escape to the wild? Not on our watch. Yeah, even rural properties, I think you'll be removed from your property, and then some other farming thing will take over the farming of your property, and they'll just let your house sit derelict, and they'll say, well, that was the climate stuff that did that. It wasn't us who did that. It was the climate stuff. Even though it's the policies that did that. Your house is very livable. The rural property is very livable. They just don't want you living there, and they want your land. And this is a great way to just do it all in one foul swoop. So scary stuff. And it's very plausible. It's very plausible. Table Salt says, from the government of Canada, 81% of forest fires burned in fire season are from lightning strikes. They can't ban lightning. So what do? They ban hiking because they learned they can make you do anything during COVID. And so this is from the Government of Canada website. It says forest fires and lightning. Here are some quick facts regarding forest fires from Natural Resources Canada. Forest fires started by lightning represent 45% of all fires, represent 81% of the total area burned, and occur in remote locations and often in multiple clusters. So forest fires occurrence and area burned are highly variable. And so is this hiking ban? I saw somewhere that hiking is responsible for less than 1%, like 0.05% of the fires. Somebody's dropped a cigarette butt, right? And like the number of people who are going to go on a hike with a cigarette, it would probably be higher with a joint. People would probably go on a hike with a joint much more likely than a cigarette. Although, maybe I'm wrong about that. Who knows? It's been a while since I smoked, but when I smoked, I did go on a walk once because we were at a wedding. And I think that the people we were at the wedding, somebody didn't know we smoked. Maybe it was parents. Somebody's parents didn't know we smoked. And so we were like, we're going on a walk. And so we went for a walk and we had 2 cigarettes. And I was like, yes. But of course they knew we smoked when we got back because we stank like cigarettes. Regardless, nobody said anything and the walk worked. So occasionally I've gone for a walk with a cigarette. But it's not, It wasn't on a nature trail. It was down by the river in Fergus. But regardless, it's one of those things where I just feel like it's not as likely, especially in fire season. You're not like, I'm going to take my pack of smokes to the woods. But I could be wrong about that too. Bruce says, why doesn't Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, and Ontario just hire cloud seeding companies like weathermod.com or rainmaker.com to make it rain? Yeah, Rainmaker was on Fox News. He was on all sorts of other CNN. And he was saying, listen, we bring cheap water to places that are remote where desalinization would add 4, 5, 10 times the cost. And he was saying it was hugely expensive compared to what they're doing. And they inject geoengineering to bring the water, and the water comes, and he says it's pretty reliable. And we've done all of these, we've brought water to all of these places that are very remote and be very difficult to serve with desalination water, and it's better quality water, and so on and so forth. He made all sorts of arguments. And I was like, okay, I mean, that's actually a pretty good argument. Like, I can understand that. If you can pigeonhole this thing and prove to, I guess, but I mean, the powers that be, that this thing's not doing anything else. Like, it's not impacting snow. It's not impacting the weather in other places. If you're stealing the rain from the clouds here, how does that impact the regular weather patterns? Like, there's other tangential things that I'm interested in. But in this situation, like, we've got an emergency, it's very, very dry, so on and so forth. Why isn't this on the table? This should be the first thing on the table, or one of the first things on the table, if we're already geoengineering. I look up in the sky and I think to myself, they're geoengineering this outcome right now in order to justify all of these climate lockdowns for your safety, comrade. They're geoengineering. It's obvious. They talk about it on CNN. They talk about how they can service all of these places, these remote places with geoengineered clouds and rainwater. So it seems irresponsible for all of our leaders to claim absolute impotency in the face of this. They can't do anything. We can't make it rain. Yes, you effing well can. Easily call these people. Why aren't you? It's very strange. We could all lose our houses and we will not use that geoengineering because people don't like geoengineering. I just don't like geoengineering that I'm not aware of and can't have any oversight over, and there's no transparency around, right? You can't stop the geoengineering that's going on right now. You look up in the sky, they're definitely geoengineering every day. I saw it yesterday. And we're not allowed to use this. This is not on the table. Because why? Because the politicians are not working for us. Because the fires are part and parcel of the problem, reaction, solution river that we're trapped in. Every other, if we're not in the problem section, we're in the reaction and then the solution section. So the next one's going to be an economic problem, reaction, solution, and they're going to take away cash money and they're going to replace it with digital IDs and central bank digital currencies. I hope I'm wrong, but it looks like we're just going to do whatever they say. Oh, look, there's no water and fires. You can't leave your house now because reasons, right? Oh, the cars cause lots of fires. Didn't you know? You can't drive your car because it's lots of fires with those cars. Unbelievable stuff. Lion Advocacy says, and if they get away with all of this, this is the foundation they're going to build the rest of this on. They're just going to say, oh yeah, well, I mean, obviously fires, so you can't go in the woods. Obviously climate change, so you can't use your cars. Obviously, right? Lion Advocacy says, Newfoundland and Labrador have jumped on the bandwagon with threats of absurd fines and jail for people hiking on Crown land, regardless of whether the hiker is incendiary material. So if you're not walking around with a pack of smokes and a lighter, no incendiary, you can't make a fire with incendiary material, you're still getting fined, right? Even if you don't have anything like that. Punishment severity likely violates the charter, but the judges are going to say, you are violating a public good because you're walking in the woods and that's a fire risk for some reason. So you're responsible for all of this fire damage because you're being blamed for this. And so it is justified. They're going to say it is justified, and it is because you're somehow flying in the face of the public good and you're doing crimes against humanity for walking in the woods. They're going to try and drop the apparatus of the state on your head. And they're going to do that because it's the foundation of the next phase of all of this. It's underpinning, you can't go into the woods because climate change and we can't stop this. Okay. And they're lying to you. Of course they can stop this. Of course they can. Of course. Cruel and unusual punishment. Shame on these leaders. Yeah. And I'm not convinced that the judges are going to side with the citizens on this. Instant Weather Ontario. So here's our wildfire risk map. Thank you, Zine, for sending this my way. I wasn't aware of this, but I think I'm following these guys now. I should be following them. Oh, I thought I was following them. Instant Weather Ontario says widespread extreme wildfire danger. Wildfire danger is on the rise across southern Ontario, and conditions are expected to become even more challenging in the coming days. 2 wildfires, Halo 18 south of Coe Hill and Halo 19 between Kinmount and Bobcaygeon, continue to burn out of control. Fire crews are actively working to support both blazes, but the weather is not on their side. Monday's forecast will make firefighting extremely difficult, both for these active fires and for any new ones that they might ignite. As shown on the wildfire risk map, much of southern Ontario will be under high to extreme fire danger on Monday. Daytime highs are expected to climb into the low 30s, blah, 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 blah. But here's the map, if you're interested, right? GTA, high extreme, Brockville, Perth, Vaughan, right? Toronto area, right down by the lake into, is that Brampton? I don't know why Brampton has got an extreme fire risk. Figure that one out. That's a little weird. And then all of southwestern Ontario, south of Brampton, London. I mean, is Guelph on that? I don't know. I can't tell if Guelph's on that. This is a very useless map, really. It doesn't tell you anything. And then Windsor's not. Windsor's just high, right? But Brampton, extreme. So Port Elgin's looking nice. Here's an extreme one. I don't know why there's an extreme pocket up north, but it seems to me they're telling us a story, and the story is supposed to be really believable with really, really scary reds and yellows and stuff. Oh no, it's so scary. And we're supposed to just believe it and be like, okay, we won't do anything that you say will harm us. But when they say they're doing everything, they are absolutely not. This is a guy who is a retired firefighter in Nova Scotia. He and his friends, who are highly trained firefighters, offered to come in and help. They were ignored. They took it to the media. The media put pressure on the government. The government said, okay, we'll put you on the list. But it was basically a get fucked, right? Go away. Or get effed, right? Go away. And now I think this is from 23. I think I've seen this before, but this is the kind of stuff they're doing. I don't know that this is a new one. I think this is an old one, but I think they're going to behave the same way. It may be new. I'm not sure. I just don't know the date of this video. So take it with a grain of salt, as usual, but this is how the government responds. They are not doing everything they can to stop this.
Finally, I got frustrated and went on talk radio on Thursday, and then I got a phone call from Shuby Radio that said, or not Shuby Radio, Shuby Fire Control, that they put my name on the list and the name of a few others. It was a polite way to say, look, we know you're making noise. Thank you, but no thank you. We're still not going to hire you guys to come fight fires. So what taxpayers need to understand is while buildings were burning and the province was short-staffed, and our government was standing in front of TV cameras saying we're doing everything they can, they lied to your face. They didn't. I could have pulled together a lot more teams of guys, retired guys willing to come out and do this. We were not offering to do front line, hose line fire, but there's for every guy on the line, sometimes there's 3 guys behind the line providing what they need in the way of services. And we were highly trained in both evacuation, all levels of incident command. Personally, I've been incident commander on dozens of different fires and fought fires up to 50,000 acres. And together on the first team I put together, we had close to 200 years of experience of fighting fires here in the Acadia region of Nova Scotia. We have our own particular forests down here that, for example, all the crews that are being shipped in have zero experience fighting fires in an Acadian forest region. Most of their experience is in boreal forests. The guys from South Africa have no experience up here. The guys from the U.S., same thing. And our own government passed over an opportunity to hire a team of professionals to come in and help them do the work they're now paying for foreigners to come in and do who aren't experienced in our forest type. And it's absolutely a disgrace to the province. Now, I realize that there were major problems at all levels. There appears to be problem at bureaucratic levels, managerial levels, and at political levels. When things should have been done, they weren't getting done. But I'd like to quote what Tim Houston said on Thursday on Talk Radio. He said, in an emergency, the time for action is now, the time for paperwork is later. And that was only minutes after I'd just been advised from Shubenacadie, thanks, but no thanks, we're not going to take you guys on. So our team stayed on standby, hoping that we'd get a call all week, and that call never came. So if you lost your house and fires remained out of control, when a politician looks you in the eye and says, we did everything we could, they're lying to your face.
They're lying to your face there. And that's very, very concerning. Very concerning indeed. Here is, because they're trying to make it seem like they care, and they don't. Christine says, when you describe everything as a safety issue, it means everything can be controlled. Global News is reporting on this. Group threatens Nova Scotia with legal action over grossly disproportionate woods ban. And yeah, that's fundamentally what like the crux of the situation. It's if you say this is a safety issue. So it's the same thing with the trans thing. If you say that man can't be a woman, and the person who you're saying is a man who's trying to pretend to be a woman says, oh, you make me feel unsafe, then all of a sudden I'm the bad guy for stating a plain fact, and they're protected in the victimhood frame of that situation, claiming victimhood and putting me on the defensive for stating a fact. And so they do this for all sorts of different things in order to control the narrative and control the talk about how this whole thing works. So for your safety, comrade, and framing it that way gives them way more control. And that's very, very scary as well. Here's Ryan. He says, walking in the woods in Nova Scotia, a $28,000 fine, deliberately setting 30 fires and only getting 200 hours of community service, priceless. So CBC is reporting on July 22nd, Saskatchewan volunteer firefighter who set 30 fires in a month, sentenced for arson. So yeah, 18 months probation, 200 hours of community service, and pretty wild, right? But if you go walk in the woods, that's a $28,000 fine. And if you set a fire somewhere in New Brunswick during the fire ban, I think that's 6 months in jail, or is that Newfoundland? Gosh. Jeff Evely says, I can't believe that this is the front page of the Toronto Sun. The public response to my simple act of civil disobedience has been amazing. Thanks again to Joe Warmington of the Toronto Sun for getting right on top of this. I really enjoyed our conversation as well. So Toronto Sun is highlighting $25,000 walk in the woods. Air Force veteran defies Nova Scotia's ban and is burned with a hefty fine. And yeah, that's interesting. Sometimes when candidates from political parties do these things, like unsuccessful, like if Lisa Raitt did something like this, you would imagine that they would highlight that former conservative, you know what I mean? Conservative rep. It's interesting. I wonder if the article omits it as well. John Paul says the fracturing is happening again. Nova Scotia is in full-blown mass formation, same as COVID. We have the people who support the draconian, unprecedented climate change lockdowns and those who are vehemently opposed. We have come full circle. Yeah, and all of this is being used to wedge. So there are people who say, oh, just stay out of the woods. It's not tyranny, it's good sense. And there are other people who say it's clearly tyranny. This is clearly a tyrannical move by people who are tyrants. And that's very, very concerning. And I agree. I think it is concerning. Here's Table Salt, and she says, major breaking news. The Nova Scotia snitch line for reporting those being in nature illegally is either closed or overwhelmed. Multiple reports of users being unable to get through. So that's good. That's an interesting turn of events. Is the snitch line being so well used that it's overwhelmed, or are people overwhelming it on purpose in order for it to be unusable? So that's an interesting, I don't know, but we'll find out, I guess. Here is Petrified COVID Parent, and they say, hikers cause forest fires because they hike standing up. If they were sitting down, fires wouldn't start. So it's the same rationale as the restaurants. If you were sitting down, you could not have a mask on because the virus knows you're sitting down and will leave you alone. But if you're standing up, you better have your mask on because the virus knows you're standing up and will get you, right, when you're standing up maskless. But sitting down maskless, no problems. Same thing. And it's ridiculous. It was ridiculous then. It's ridiculous now. Herb says, Nova Scotia's government, don't go into the woods or face a $25,000 fine. Nova Scotia, and this is a question for AI, I guess. What percentage of Nova Scotia is woods without only considering rural? What percentage live on, in, or around aside woods? So apparently 60% of Nova Scotians live adjacent to or in the woods. The whole island is woods, right? Like the whole place is woods. So it's a very difficult prospect to set up a situation like that where the woods that you're not allowed to enter may include your house, right? Like, I'm sure they've thought it through. Nope. They've thought it through, and that if the woods include your house, they'll evacuate you to a 15-minute city. Here's another climate lockdown bit of news, and apparently Belgium's doing the same thing. Here we go.
Hi everybody, I'm standing here at the Belgian coast for this really first nice day in June. And let me tell you something about a certain town called Knokke at the Belgian coast. Is they're doing basically like what is called a climate lockdown. So on days that is too hot, Knokke, which is a town a little bit further from here. I'm not at Knokke right now. I don't care to go there. It's like considered the rich town on the Belgian coast, and so they're going to do like a climate lockdown. So on hot days, they're going to totally shut down the city, and nobody can come in anymore, just because they want to try it. And so that means they don't care about the local restaurants there, the local bars, the business people there. Just shut down, and no more people can come in because it's supposedly full. So this is the plan we've been warning all along, that we would do climate lockdowns. And now this Belgian city of Knokke at the coast is the first one going to start to implement it in the summer. So you just basically drive there and the highway is closed. It's absolutely crazy, and it's a dangerous precedent. It means as a citizen you can't go where you want to go anymore. That area is off limits, and it's a violation of your freedom, because you should be able to go anywhere you want to go in your country. This is public property, so this is a very dangerous precedent. I don't like this, actually. So that's it for this video. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye bye.
I don't like it either. He's exactly right. I don't like this. It's very concerning. It is. Here is Sean, and he says, in 10 years driving, your own car will be almost illegal. AI showed us exactly how the bans will unfold. The first restrictions start this year. Here's how government will eliminate your freedom step by step. Kerry Lutz has tested Tesla's self-driving car for 3 years. He says it's now driving him 95% of the time, and it gets 10 to 20 times better every 6 months. He asked AI how this ends. The answer shocked him. By 2035, manual driving will be treated like smoking. Legal restrictions, social pressure, geographic containment. Urban areas will ban human drivers entirely, but here's how they'll convince us to accept it. Narrative comes first, media campaigns, cultural shaming. AI even predicted headlines like why letting grandpa drive is dangerous. Parents whisper at pickup. Same playbook from 2020 and from the fires now. Kerry's Tesla drives him 95% of the time. 3 years ago, FDS would have gotten him killed. Today, it brings him from I-95 to his doorstep. In 6 months, it'll outperform humans in virtually every situation. And once it does, the job loss hits. America has 10 million professional drivers, truckers, Uber, delivery. It's their largest employment segment. Once FSD proves safer than humans, those jobs vanish, but the real loss goes deeper. The automobile has always represented freedom, Let's explained. Go wherever you want, whenever you want. Politicians have hated it from day one. It's too hard to control a population that's free to do whatever you want. AI laid it out. Insurance discrimination, urban driving bans, geofencing, unsafe areas, rerouting for your safety. You try to take a family road trip and get destination restricted. Lutz shared his I-95 experience. I said it's 85 miles an hour and it brings me to my front doorstep. The technology already exists. Governments just need the right movement to mandate it. They're laying the groundwork now, and the same is happening in Canada. Yeah, and there's more on this one. So Sean does a podcast, and it's pretty well watched, and you've probably check it out if you're interested. Link is in the description. We've got to say goodbye to the stream, everybody. So thanks for watching, and we will catch you tomorrow. Oh man, this is one of the longer streams I've done lately. I wanted to get through the fire stuff because I think the fire stuff's crazy, and I think they're using it on us.